Welcome back everyone. Today I'm going to review Homo Deus by Yuval Noah Harari. This book is a history of the future, and this book talks about the future of Homo sapiens and how they will be impacted because of the biotechnological advancement, and what will their future look like because of these advancements, and will they even exist in the future. The author Yuval Noah Harari is a PhD holder from the University of Oxford and teaches history at Hebrew University of Jerusalem, Israel. He is the best-selling author of *Sapiens*, which is also a prequel to this book, and I have reviewed and summarized that book. You can check out that video for the reference. I found something interesting about the dedication of this book. The book has been dedicated to an Indian, Mr. S.N. Goenka, whom the author calls his teacher who lovingly taught me important lessons. Mr. Goenka was a teacher of Vipassana, which is a form of meditation. This is also a very little known fact about the author, that for every 1 or 2 months, every year, he cuts himself off from the outside world and practices Vipassana meditation. Now let's talk about the book. One of the most fascinating things he says in the book is that as biotechnology advances, in very near future, humans will be able to live around 150 years of life. How? Because of data that will be collected about us and analyzed by the algorithms. What will happen is that when every Homo sapiens data, like their blood pressure, heartbeat, DNA, etc., will be stored in a database, then the algorithm will be able to start predicting or a lot of upcoming events in our lives. These algorithms will warn us about any ailment that might start to come up in our body, and will also help us to initiate our treatment in the very initial stages of our diseases. Today what happens is that we start to feel some pain, or we start to remain very unhealthy, and that's how we realize that something is wrong with our body. But this will be something that will be told by the algorithms that because you have this, you are going to have this, because they will have data of every human being. Then also he changes. Then he also talks about the kind of revolution such change in the human society will bring. For example, if you were to live for 150 years, you will have to make some decisions about when are you going to marry, because if you marry at 30, you are going to live with your wife for more than 100 years. Now, will that kind of marriage be sustainable, is one of the things that one of the questions that the author asks. And also today most of us retire at the age of 65, 60. The author asks that if you were to live for 150 years, will you be able to sustain yourself for such a long life on your mere pension, or in so many cases people don't even get pensions. So you will also have to then think about the kind of hierarchy that will be built, because today you might reach the top of the hierarchy at age near to the retirement, but when the retirement age goes up to 130, 140 years, how long and frustrating it will be for you to keep working in that hierarchy and then finally reach up that hierarchy. Because if your boss is just 120 years old and you are just 60, that means that he's going to remain your boss for 20 years, and after that someone else will be your boss for so many years, for decades. How that hierarchy will work is also that the author talks about. Then he says that Homo sapiens are not going to be exterminated by a robot revolt, but Homo sapiens itself will be upgraded to become Homo Deus. Homo means humans, and Deus means God. The humans will be like God. This is the main concept of the book, and also that's why it's the title of the book. One of the aspects of this is that every existing human on earth will not be able to upgrade itself. because the biotechnology would be extremely expensive. Only the super rich will be able to afford this kind of treatment. To live a longer life would not just require that we remain free of from illness, but also that we stop aging. Aging is the degeneration of cells and by extension the organs. The author argues that death is not caused by some divine decree that okay, kill him, okay, his the number of breaths he was given are over, so now he has to die. He says that that it occurs by accident, that accidentally your heart is now aged and it has stopped beating, or some artery got blocked and the person dies. But if we wish to live longer after defying aging, then we'll have to upgrade our organs. Well, whole of our human bodies, and this upgraded human body will be called Homo Deus, a new revolutionized and evolved human body. Now, as we discovered, everyone won't be able to afford this evolutionary transformation. There will be a huge useless class of persons. They will be rendered useless and they will be good for nothing. This also leads author to say that we do not know if the skill that we are acquiring today will even be useful for us to earn our livelihoods tomorrow, because with such humongous social transformation, we do not know if machines will take over our professions. For example, say someone becomes a doctor and a neurosurgeon, and it is one of the most sophisticated and complex branches of medicine. But what if tomorrow these algorithms take over and they perform a better job than the human doctor? Then what will that neurosurgeon do? The author also talks about humanist revolution. Earlier, the source of truth and knowledge used to be holy scriptures, where the priest and the like claimed lies all the answers to all your queries. For example, Christians looked for answers in the Bible, Hindus looked for answers in the Vedas, and so on. But now, after the humanist revolution, the author argues that it has come to be believed that the truth is what you feel is the truth. According to humanism, humans must draw from within their inner experiences not only the meaning of their own lives, but the meaning of the entire universe. He also quotes from Emily, written by Rousseau, the 18th century Bible of feeling. Rousseau held that when looking for the rules of conduct in life, he found them in the depths of my heart, traced by nature in characters which nothing can efface. I need only consult myself with regard to what I wish to do. What I feel to be good is good, what I feel to be bad is bad. Then he also talks about something very funny that happens, and it can also be contributed to this phenomenon of what I feel is good and what I feel is bad is bad. He says that even today, religious zealots adopt this humanitarian discourse when they want to influence public opinion. For example, every year for the past decade, the Israeli LGBT community holds a gay parade in the streets of Jerusalem. It is a unique day of harmony in the conflict-driven city because it is one occasion when religious Jews, Muslims and Christians suddenly find a common cause. They all fume in accord against the gay parade. What's really interesting though is the argument they use. They don't say you shouldn't hold a gay parade because God forbids homosexuality. Rather, they explain to every available microphone and TV camera that seeing a gay parade through the holy city of Jerusalem hurts our feelings. Just as gay people want us to respect their feelings, they should respect ours too. And happy Pride Month, by the way. He also talks about the phenomenon in the modern free markets that the customer is always right. He says that now suppose that Toyota company wants to produce the perfect car that has ever existed, and for that it brings together the finest psychologists, economists, and even consults sociologists and psychologists, and also throws in some Nobel laureates and some Oscar-winning actress and world-famous artists. Now, when that car goes into the market, but the market does not respond and nobody buys that car, no one can blame the customers for not buying it. The blame will be on the company, on these people who made the car. So customer is always the king in this modern free market. He also debunks the argument which is that a machine will always be dead. It has no feeling, so it is never going to be better than humans. He argues that it does not require feelings to overtake. Consciousness that humans have and machines do not is not required. What is required is intelligence that can very easily be programmed into algorithms. And he talks about a phenomenon called Internet of All Things, which will be established under a new religion called the data religion, which will know us better than even we know ourselves, because it will have data about our blood pressure, our DNA, our heartbeat, and whatever, and how we feel when we do something. It will have our bodily data of 24/7, how we feel when we do something, what are we craving, because it will know that when last time we craved something, we were feeling like this. So we are craving at this point this thing. How we felt when something happened. Are we going to fall sick? Because it might know, because it will have the data of the whole populace that exists on this planet. That it might say that because you have this mutation in your DNA, and 87% of the women who had this mutation had the risk of getting breast cancer. So you better get a surgery and better get treated for it. This is further strengthened by the author by telling the story of the famous actress Angelina Jolie. She underwent a test, a DNA test, where it was found that she had a mutation in her DNA, where it was found that if a woman had this particular mutation, then it was 87% possible for that woman to get cancer. And she trusted that algorithm, and she underwent a surgery and got the treatment, even when she was feeling totally healthy and had no signs of any ailment. Dataism says, you want to know who you really are, then forget about mountains and museums. Have you had your DNA sequenced? He says Dataism threatens to do to Homo sapiens what Homo sapien has done to all other animals. He also talks about censorship very briefly. He says that in the past, censorship worked by blocking the flow of information. In the 21st century, censorship works by flooding people with irrelevant information, and they get stuck into what is right and what is wrong and what is true and false information. All in all, the book is very informative about the future. The author says that all these scenarios in the book should be understood as possibilities and not prophecies. But the author reasons quite well a lot of these arguments, except for one or two. One of these being that a new religion will emerge and people will give up their old religion, because there is so much diversity on this planet, and if these religion can survive for millennium when we have undergone so much change, there is a possibility that these religions are going to stay even if we are upgraded, we become Homo Deus, because you see, even then there will be uncertainties. Even when we upgrade ourselves as Homo Deus, it is not that even a blast would not be able to kill us. Even a car crash wouldn't be able to kill us. If we are hit by a car, we might die. So in that sense, whenever there is uncertainty, whenever there is this lack of confidence, and a lot of confidence is required, we have to believe that that there is some power that will do good to us, the religions will stay. Next week, I'll be reviewing Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. Like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much.